Thank you for listening to Scandinavian Crimes Podcast. Be sure to check out the episode links and be part of our other social media platforms where you can leave a topic suggestion or even share some of your insights regarding the subject matter of the episode. We'll always do our best to provide a well-researched episode, but sometimes due to limited access, translation issues, and inconsistent evidence between multiple sources, there can be information that's lost. It is therefore good to do your own research and get a deeper understanding of a case of your own interest. So with that all said, let's start today's episode.
Welcome to Scandinavian Crimes. My name is Devante, and say hello to my lovely co-host, Delila.
Hi.
And on this podcast, we talk about famous Scandinavian criminals who made their mark throughout Scandinavian history. So I wanted to fool you guys today because Delilah's going to be the one reading. So
no, I'm not.
joking.
No, I'm not going to read nothing.
Apparently, she's self-conscious about reading.
Yes,
My voice
I
is
am.
not that lovely.
I don't like reading.
You should. Reading is fun. Either way, this is a case that Denmark had never faced before. A brutal series of murders that shocked the nation. The violence was so extreme, and the investigation would change the way police approach solving crimes, putting a new focus on behavioral profiling. So this is going to be a very interesting case because this is like a very, how can I describe it? It's very targeted, but at the same time not targeted. I don't want to ruin too much of it before we get into it, but I think I should really just lock in for this one because this is going to be kind of weird a little bit. You know, so I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I find this weird. Also, if you enjoy the podcast, be sure to give us a nice little review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. It'll really mean a lot. And also, if you have any ideas or you want to respond to the podcast, especially if you're on Spotify, feel free to leave us a comment in the how'd you enjoy the episode section thing. And we will definitely check it out. So you already know what I'm about to say, right? Especially if you've been here before. Come on now, stop playing with me. Grab your tea. Grab your snacks. If you're on your way to work, tuck yourself into that nice little corner, especially if you're on the train or the bus, because this is the story of the Conn murders. On a warm August evening in 1971, the courtyard on Finsmarksgade in Nørrebro was filled with children's laughter enjoying the last moments of daylight. Among them was the 8-year-old Conn playing alongside her younger brother and their friends. At some point, a man entered the courtyard. He walked up to Conn, asked for her name, and claimed to have a message from a woman in the building. Without hesitation, she followed him toward the entrance number 41. As time passed, the other children began to wonder where Conn had gone. Concerned, they made their way to the stairwell, calling her name. As they entered the building, their playful laughter faded into pure terror. Meanwhile, police officers preparing for patrol received an urgent message. A serious incident had occurred on Finsmarksgade. When officers arrived, they saw paramedics carrying a lifeless young girl, her body covered in stab wounds. Moments later, Connie's father arrived, devastated to realize his daughter was the victim. Upon arriving at the crime scene, investigators immediately noticed the bloodstains, confirming it was the murder site. The murder of Conn was unimaginably brutal. She had been stabbed a total of 33 times, and her throat was slit. Typically, most crimes have clear motives, especially when children are involved, often pointing to sexual assault. However, in Connie's case, there was no signs of sexual violence, leaving police to wonder, why was she targeted? The sheer number of stab wounds exposed the killer's uncontrollable rage and aggression, suggesting this was more than just a random act of violence. The police quickly began questioning the children who had been playing in the courtyard. Several mentioned seeing a man around 30 years old with black hair and distinctive glasses. They also noticed a dark stain on his pants near the crotch area. He was last seen riding away in a mustard-colored bicycle. Another witness, a young woman, came forward stating that she had seen the man outside the apartment complex as if searching for something. He looked towards entrance 41 and then glanced into the courtyard, which made her believe he was looking for someone. She described him as having cold, piercing eyes, greasy, unkempt hair, and estimated his age to be around 50. The description did not match the 30-year-old man seen by the children, suggesting there could be two different suspects. Based on this, the police created a composite sketch of the suspect. During the 1960s to early 1980s, Danish police sometimes used composite sketches based on witness descriptions, hoping the public could offer tips. The strategy initially generated interest, with police reporting around 100 new tips in a single day. However, despite the wave of responses, none of the tips led to a breakthrough. One issue with composite sketches is they are often based on a single witness's memory, which may not always be accurate. The description might match the perpetrator, but it could just as easily be of an innocent bystander. In this case, the composite sketch failed to produce any useful leads, and the case eventually went cold. 3 months after Connie's murder, a 20-year-old man was arrested for a stabbing attack. He had tried to force his way into an apartment, injuring a woman in the process. As the police investigated, they discovered that he lived in the same building as Connie, identifying him as Klaus Kai Bergeron. Despite being 20 years old and looking nothing like the composite sketch, the police brought him in for questioning. Klaus claimed he doesn't remember his exact whereabouts on the day of Connie's murder, but says he left work at 4:30 p.m. and went straight to the bar with his co-workers. He also mentions that a drink was spilled on him at the bar, explaining the dark stain on his pants near the crotch. However, when police questioned his fiancée and her mother, they provided a different story. They confirmed that Klaus had returned from the bar but never mentioned the spilled drink. Instead, he had told them that he had been in a fight with a foreign worker and used a Finnish knife, which he always carried in his boot. They claimed the bloodstains on his pants were from the injured man, not a spilled drink. This inconsistency raised suspicions, and just as investigators seemed to close in on a breakthrough, several of his co-workers provided an alibi. They insisted that Klaus was with them when emergency vehicles already arrived at the crime scene, meaning he couldn't have been the murderer. With no concrete evidence linking Klaus to Connie's murder, the case stalls again, and the investigation is shelved. 5 years later, a brutal murder occurs in Randers. A 15-year-old girl named Connie, spelled with an IE, was stabbed 36 times in a basement laundry room. To avoid confusion, we refer to her as Conn. Police believe Conn initially tried to escape, running toward the basement restroom where the struggle took place. She attempted to flee again, leaving a 35-meter trail of blood, but her attacker, wearing clogs, chased her down and stabbed her 36 times before slitting her throat. The sheer brutality of the crime leads the Danish National Homicide Unit to be called in. The blood trail led investigators to stairwell 103, prompting them to question the building's residents. Suspicion quickly fell on a man who admitted to seeing Conn and her sister in the basement laundry room shortly before the murder. When asked about his whereabouts during the crime, he hesitated, unable to provide a clear alibi. One of the detectives recognized his name, and when they pulled up his criminal record, it was revealed to be Klaus, the suspect in the unsolved murder of the 8-year-old Connie 5 years earlier. During questioning, detectives noticed fresh scratches on Klaus's face. He claimed he had slipped in the shower while wearing glasses, which cut his face. The officers were skeptical, but Klaus insisted it was common, even claiming to have a photo as proof. But his explanation only raised more suspicion. Recently, Klaus had moved to Randers with his pregnant wife, who was hospitalized in Copenhagen due to complications. When questioned, he told police that on the day of the murder, he traveled from Copenhagen to Randers, arriving around 1 p.m. He claimed he spent an afternoon drinking at home, only leaving at 5 p.m. to buy food and more beer. When he returned, he said he encountered a woman outside the building asked her about the emergency vehicles. She told him a young girl had been murdered in the basement. After that, he simply went back upstairs, showered, and ate his food. However, Klaus's story didn't add up to the other neighbors' stories. 2 women later told police they had spoken to him exactly 5 p.m., the same time he claimed to be out buying food and beer. Even more troubling, he had mentioned the girl's murder before the police had even arrived. knowing details no one else should have known at the time. As suspicion grew, searched Klaus's apartment and found a disturbing collection of stolen items. While none directly linked to Conn's murder, they were all enough to charge him with the theft and possession of stolen goods. This gave investigators more time, but they knew they had to move quickly. Without solid proof, Klaus could walk free. As the investigation progressed, police received an unexpected call from Klaus's wife, Yanni. After reading about the murder, she began to suspect her husband. When asked if they could search her apartment again, she agreed without any hesitation. During the search, Yanni pointed out unsettling details: rags under the sink that looked like they had been used for cleaning, an unusual number of towels in the laundry as if Klaus had been showering excessively. But the most disturbing discovery was a missing kitchen knife. She informed the officers that they had previously owned a cucumber knife, but it has now gone missing. Determined to find solid evidence, they carefully searched the apartment, uncovering blood-stained rags and a pair of Klaus's clogs, both with traces of blood, but the knife was still nowhere to be found. They conducted one last thorough search of the apartment, which was now nearly empty except for a bolted-down shelf. After much effort, they pried it loose, revealing a blood-covered knife beneath, with Klaus's fingerprints and Conn's blood on it. This discovery was all the evidence they needed to close the case. Klaus finally broke. His voice was strained, and as he muttered that it must have been him who committed the crime, though he remembered nothing. He admitted that on the day of the murder, he had encountered Conn in the basement of the Randers apartment complex and even recalled grabbing hold of her. But when asked if he stabbed her, his memory faltered and he claimed he didn't remember. Following his confused confession, investigators turned their attention to the unsolved case from 1971, the brutal stabbing of Connie in Copenhagen. Now with his conviction for the Randers murder, police reopened the investigation. At first, Klaus's colleagues provided him with an alibi, stating that he had been with them at the bar when the emergency vehicles rushed past toward the crime scene. However, when the police re-examined the timeline, they uncovered a critical detail. There had been 2 separate emergency responses that evening. His colleagues had only been with him during the second incident, not the initial response to Connie's murder. With this revelation, Klaus's alibi completely fell apart. Despite the mounting evidence, Klaus remained evasive. When questioned about the murder of Connie, he admitted only to seeing her that day, walking with her to the stairwell, and entering the building with her. But when asked about what happened inside, his memory became hazy. He acknowledged being there, but refused to take full responsibility, repeatedly insisting that everything was a blur. As investigators dug deeper into Klaus's criminal record, they uncovered a disturbing connection. Before Klaus became a suspect in the 1971 murder, he had been involved in a violent altercation with the mother of a woman he had been obsessed with. The woman had repeatedly rejected him, and her name was Connie. This suggested a possible psychological trigger that he might have sought revenge by targeting girls with the same name. After an extensive trial, Klaus was sentenced to life in prison. While in prison, experts studied his behavior. He admitted that alcohol fueled his violent urges, describing him as calm and rational when sober. It was suggested that if he remained sober, he might be safe for release. Authorities granted Klaus parole on 2 separate occasions, but each decision ended in failure. Shortly after his release, he sexually assaulted underage girls, demonstrating that he continued to pose a threat to society. As a result, he was sent back to prison indefinitely, where he remained until 2002. That year, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer and ultimately died in prison, never regaining his freedom. This case influenced investigative techniques in Denmark, leading to stronger focus on criminal behavior analysis. It helped police distinguish between modus operandi, the necessary steps to commit a crime, and a serial killer's signature, the personal, compulsive elements added by choice. Today, behavioral profiling is a key tool in modern investigations, allowing authorities to identify serial offenders more effectively before they strike again. This is interesting because the second, even before we did the recording, the second I read what was going on, I had a feeling that his attachment to the name Connie was based on a trigger from a previous encounter. And they pretty much got to the root cause of it. It's because he was obsessed with this one girl, and because that one girl didn't give him what he wanted,
and then he became manic, and it was a trigger. That's crazy.
Yeah, it became a trigger for him because this one girl denied him that he was obsessed with. So instead of being a rational person and, okay, she denied me, whatever, leave it alone, his mind was like, I need to get even.
It was like a trauma response to that or something.
So instead of just getting even with the girl that rejected him, which I'm not encouraging, obviously, I'm not saying that's right, but I'm saying instead of like targeting the person itself, he targeted everyone who reminded him of her.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy because stuff like this does happen. There are a lot of cases like this. I think even in Law and Order, no, it was what's the name of that show with the FBI agents? No, not X-Files. It's the other one that's like been on for like 20 years, 21 years, something like that, with the FBI profilers, Criminal Minds.
No, yeah.
They had like a couple episodes where people were like that, where certain things would trigger them, not because they themselves were the trigger, but because of something they experienced previously triggered their trauma and they reacted violently towards it. So I think
this is like the first like murder where we had somebody who was like triggered by like only killing people with the same name.
Yeah.
But also
this is a new one.
Was a very clear like target, and also for the police to be like, okay, all these women, like girls as well, because some of them were just children, name were Connie, and they were like, that's a super good sign, especially for somebody who's like a serial killer tendency. So.
Yeah. It's even crazier too, like there was no age limit on it. So like even children who were named Connie, he was just like, I want to take this person out. So it seemed like it didn't matter how old they were, what they looked like. He was just like Connie. Just the name locked him into just that thought, that trauma.
Do you think that he actually did remember everything that happened? And it wasn't like because you know how triggers can also lead you to be like psychotic sometimes? Do you feel like this could be like a psychotic thing, or do you feel like he remembers and he knew what he did and he just
I think he remembers.
I'm
pretty confident
too.
he remembers. I think what he was trying to kind of partially cover his ass, which didn't work out, obviously.
I have proof that I have glasses in the shower. Like, what?
He was trying to partially cover his ass because he was aware. Because the thing is, when he confessed, he was like, it might have been me, versus why didn't you say that the first time?
Yeah, why didn't you say that the first time? Why did you say
so when they had information on him? Yeah, when they had information on him, when they had the evidence, that's when he was like, maybe it was me. And I'm just like, so he knew. He was aware. The thing is, the alcohol didn't cause him to black out.
Did you stab her? He was like, I don't know. I don't remember. Like,
he didn't want to completely admit to it. And that's usually for legal reasons. Because, you know, there's wiggle room in like a case when you go into trial. Like, oh, the person never, admitted to it. You just found the knife. Because then now it leaves room to spin another story. Because then he can blame his wife. I'm just giving an example, by the way. I'm not saying he did do that.
Yeah.
But it gives opportunity like, oh, my wife did it. We live in the same house. She could have hit it. We use the same knives. That the knife is from the house. Of course my fingerprints would be on it. I use a knife. So there's wiggle room for that's usually why they don't admit it, because he knew what he was doing.
But he was able to get away with it because he was like, I don't even know how he was able. Like, he left the first murder with the first with Connie.
It was because they overlooked that small detail. Remember?
Yeah, but like, I'm just saying that, was it because he left the party and the co-workers only heard the first emergency car?
It was like, that detail that was overlooked.
Because I didn't understand when I was writing it if it was like he left and came back, or if it was that he was like, okay, bye peeps, and then he left and then he committed the murder, and then they co-workers just confused like which emergency car they meant.
No, that's literally what happened. They confused the situation because it was emergency response twice. And then he was only with them for one of them. And then after he was with them for one of them,
so he was just lucky, basically.
He was lucky the first time, because if they didn't overlook that detail the first time, they would have caught him the first time. But because I guess the initial investigators,
an alibi,
the first investigators didn't realize that there was 2 emergency responses, so they just assumed that it was one. So now, in hindsight, when they rechecked everything, there was 2, and that's how he got away the first time over a small detail like that.
I just wanted to say something that I thought was very good for the police. It was that they were able to put 2 and 2 together and be like, oh, he was a suspect of this one. Yeah. And then I'm so glad that they were also because they didn't have enough evidence to actually charge him with murder. They were like, well, we see you have stolen goods. We could detain you for that, so that they could keep him detained. And I was just like, yes. But remember, a couple of cases ago, they couldn't do that. And we were like, oh my God, because
But I think I said that too. I was like, I think in one of the discussions, I was like, that's how they caught one of the Italian mob bosses back in the day in the US.
Yeah.
They caught him on parking tickets, unpaid parking tickets. And then that legally does allow them to do other things within a certain time frame. So I was like, they did the right thing. Oh, you have people's stuff here. You're a thief. We can charge you for that. We can hold you for that. So then they do that. Then it gives them more time to lead into something else. So I was like, that's actually smart, and they did the right thing here.
And I thought it was really smart because you can legally do that. And I was like, I just remember a couple of cases ago, about I can't even remember what case it was, but it was like something similar, and they couldn't really put him, they couldn't detain him. And then he got away, and the victim, it was just like a mess. And it could have been so much easier if they were able to just properly do it. And I'm so glad that they were smart about it and was able, in this case, and we were able to detain him for the theft. And then they're like, yeah, we found everything. And the wife, oh my God, thank you. The wife saved the day. Who was like, I see
she did the right thing. She didn't try to cover for him. She did not try and cover for him. She was like, look, I've noticed it's been off. The fact that he's been in both locations, but also too, I remember that one case we did where that one guy was really unlucky. Where, remember
the runner?
The track star? Yeah. It's really messed up. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm like laughing because when you think about it in hindsight, we remember how bad it was for him, where
that was just
I don't know if he was innocent or not, but that was pure unluck. He actually ended up in 2 different locations where 2 different murders happened where he was, and it seemed like he didn't have anything to do with either of them. But because he just happened to be there, I was like, that was pure unluck. And in this case, it's the same thing, but it's him because the wife snitched him out. So I think that's the one detail that makes a difference, is the wife.
The wife. But also he wasn't really good with his alibi the second time either. He wasn't that bright. For some reason that he was talking to the neighbors or the women or the other witnesses and saying details of the case before even the police was there. To me, that just sounds like, why? I don't know. He didn't know what he did afterwards, I feel like. And I think he knew, and he was fully in control of what he did. And he just probably was triggered by the name and just killed. And, he knew what he was doing.
I absolutely agree. I agree.
That's what I feel, at least. That's my opinion from the details we have received from this document.
I agree. But, I don't know. I don't have too much to say about it because I feel like because of the second they caught him the second time, they kind of pretty much wrapped up the details. They got the knife, they got the evidence they needed, they got the DNA, fingerprints. They pretty much had it open and closed, pretty much.
I just thought it was weird though that the kids and the neighbor were like, yeah, I think he was 50, and the kids were like, oh, probably 30. And then the sketch was super off and I thought that was a bit weird.
Both times he lived in a building too. That was what was extra weird.
Yeah.
But I think too, it's just, and I think this is what's possible in both cases. some kids have no conception of
They
age.
don't know. They're like, oh, an elderly
just,
person.
But the funny thing is, the kid said he was 30. So I'm like, they put him
that's what
younger.
I'm saying.
But then the person who was an adult was like, no, he's 50. So I'm like, either one of two things. Either the kids think all 50-year-olds look like 30-year-old in terms of
he ended up being
once
20.
you're 30, you're old. Right.
How old? Right?
So the what
Like
was he
26? 30? I don't even know.
I think he was closer to the kid's age. So I was like, the kids got it right more than the adult, which means the adult wasn't paying attention, but the kids were.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, they could see his face a lot better than the person, though. The woman.
Yeah. So that's mostly what it was. Just that's also why eyewitness testimony is just not reliable, because people say one thing, you think you would trust the adult more, but then they completely got it wrong. Because someone being in their 20s or even early 30s is different from someone being 50. You're looking for a totally different person,
like, whoa,
different generation.
50? Like, they even thought it was 2 people involved. That could be very misleading, and I'm glad they didn't think that.
Exactly. So, good job second time around.
Good job, police.
At least it didn't go on for like 10 years. I think it was only like 5. And it was only because of a small detail that, they didn't catch the first time, which it happens. But hey, you got him. He's off the street. The only thing questionable was releasing him the first 2 times.
The parole thing.
The parole thing, that should have not happened. Because I believe in change. I don't trust anybody. That's me being American, but I don't know. Like, I think.
But you said
that
before that you think parole is a good thing especially for people who have a tendency of like mental problems and stuff.
Yeah, for very specific people and reasons. I think so.
He had triggers. He could have been healed by therapy and stuff.
I doubt that for some reason. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
So you think he's a psychopath? They found out quickly he was the type of person, he just didn't let it go. He didn't want to let it go. This was something, if he was actively showing positive progress in prison, the only thing they said was, before we wrap up, is like, as long as he avoids alcohol, the triggers won't happen. Not really. Truthfully, I think the alcohol was an excuse for him to do that. He would do it sober. And after he was on parole, he did it anyway. The alcohol was never a problem. And also, he's a predator, so it's like...
Yeah, the alcohol was never a problem. It was simply just because he wanted to. And I think that's what the confusion was. That's my personal take on it, though. So, But either way, we like to end the episode on a really good note. And usually that involves delicious foods and vibes. So, Delila, what do you have in mind?
I don't know, man. Like, it's your turn. I don't know. I actually have no cravings. Water. Like, really refreshing cold water. That's what I want right now.
Do you want some Saratoga water?
I want, like, the water from the river of Norway's, like, mountains. Like, I want that clear.
I'm so dead.
Listen, that water is fire. You have never tried real water if
water
you don't go to Norway.
Fire. Water is water.
Okay. Oh, my God. I'm just saying that, like, if y'all want to drink real water, go to Norway, go up to the north of Norway to the mountains, and just drink, like, from those little rivers. That's just like, and it's really good water. It's a good quality water. It has a lot of minerals. And why am I promoting this? I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. You went super deep into this for no reason.
It's just so good.
You want water from Norway? Okay.
Okay,
we get it.
Yeah, okay.
What I would like is some tres leche.
Okay.
Very good. What? I'm not getting at that to you, would you? Anyways, if you enjoyed the episode, once again, please be sure to give us a nice little review on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And we shall catch you next week. And we're actually approaching the end of the season pretty soon. So,
Not really. We're in April now.
We end like in June. That means only 8 episodes left.
Wait a minute, that's true. I'm calculating like a fucker. Okay, yeah, you're right. That's true.
So, love you guys, and stay safe out there. And children, if you just by happenstance be listening to this, do not go with strangers. Okay? Even if they know your name. Have a great day, stay safe, and we shall catch y'all next week.
Bye.
Peace out.